Today, we're diving into the world of naval history, specifically the Fusō-class battleships from the Imperial Japanese Navy. These ships have such a rich background and were part of significant historical naval engagements.
Absolutely. The Fusō-class ships are quite fascinating. Named Fusō and Yamashiro, they were among the last battleships built before World War I in response to the arms race that was prevalent at the time.
It's interesting to think about the conditions under which these ships were designed, especially considering Japan's aspirations at the time, trying to create a fleet that could potentially contest the United States.
That's exactly right. The naval planners were focused on creating battleships that compensated for any quantitative inferiority by ensuring qualitative superiority, which meant these ships were to be stronger in terms of armament and speed compared to their counterparts.
Speaking of design, Fusō was armed with 12 14-inch guns, quite the formidable setup, even by today's standards.
Yes, they were impressive. The arrangement of those guns was quite unique too, in 6 twin turrets. This related to the ship's strategy of engaging as many targets as possible, which was part of Japan's naval doctrine back then.
I've read that the ships underwent significant modernizations in the 1930s, which wasn't common for all vessels of that era. What did these upgrades entail?
They primarily focused on improving their armor and machinery, and the ship's distinctive pagoda mast superstructures were also introduced during these upgrades. There were efforts to enhance their anti-aircraft defense, which became even more crucial as aerial threats grew more serious.
Despite those efforts, by the time World War II rolled around, they were considered somewhat obsolete, weren't they?
Yes, and that obsolescence largely stemmed from their age and the pace of naval technological advancements. However, the Fusō did see use as a troop transport, and Yamashiro was a training ship during the early years of the war.
And during their final showdown, both played roles in the Battle of Surigao Strait, one of the engagements at Leyte Gulf. Can you elaborate on their involvement?
Sure, they were part of the Southern Force. However, their journey there was marked by significant difficulty. Fusō was hit by torpedoes and sank amid conflicting reports of whether she broke apart or not. Yamashiro followed under intense shellfire and eventually torpedo hits that led to her sinking.
Only 10 men survived from each, right? That must have been a harrowing event for the crews.
Indeed, it was tragic. The survival rate was incredibly low, and it marked a grim end for these ships. The overall scale and destructive power of naval battles at the time were immense.
Reflecting on that era, these battleships highlight the rapidly changing nature of warfare technology. Each design iteration required accommodations for new threats.
Exactly. The Fusō-class battleships encapsulate a transitional period in military ship design, where naval powers grappling with new technologies had to make tough calls on ship designs that would face future threats.
It's fascinating how historical vessels like these provide insights into the past strategies and geopolitics. Thanks for sharing your expertise today.
It's been a pleasure. Discussing historical ships always reminds us of how much we've learned and how strategies and designs constantly evolve.